repetition is something that we all need. And if your why isn't strong enough, you'll collapse.
Everything in this world is really about timing, and you're a lot more capable than you probably realize you are.
Doing something physical can help change your mental state. Don't wait until you have the mindset.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Strength Connection podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kurkowski. I'm so grateful for you to join me today. All right, in this episode, I connect with Jeff Lader, IFBB Pro and owner of Lader Lifestyle. Jeff puts out some really great content, and he keeps his messages about health and fitness so simple and consistent. So I was excited to dive into his story and get to know him better. So Jeff and I dove into his experiences competing and what that taught him about discipline and mindset, and he dropped some really great insights into developing a sustainable program from beginning to end. So Jeff doesn't try and throw out crazy sound bites or gimmicks. He just keeps the message so simple and direct. This is why he's developed a strong and big audience that trusts him and trusts his word. All right, so let's get on with the show. If you're new to the podcast, do me a favor, please subscribe. If you enjoy this episode, please give it a review, help spread the message of strength. All right, thank you so much. Now let's get on with the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Jeff, nice to meet you, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's been fun following your work. I really love the message that you're putting out in just fitness, because we always think like there can be so much confusion in health and fitness of different messages that you get. And what you've done, it just seems like you just keep it so simple, so direct and to the point, which I just think we just need to do a lot more of, the coaches in this industry. So I'm excited to hear a lot more about your story and just have a good conversation today.
Yeah, me too. When you were just saying that, the simplicity and keeping it almost to the basics and the foundations, like when you look at the fitness industry today, everything is focused on the nuances and they're all trying to come up with some sort of original, something new, something unique that makes them stand out. And I get it from a marketing standpoint, but for the most part, it confuses people and it's ineffective in real life.
Yeah. It's funny too, because I'm in this world every day as you are. And sometimes it can almost feel like we're saying the same things over and over again, the simple, consistent message. And it's like, okay, are we saying this again? And it's like, well, eventually it gets through, your head. Everything in this world is really about timing. And then all of a sudden it clicks. So I think it's so important to keep the same message over and over again. And I think especially in the world of social media, everybody's trying to find that new soundbite or that new click bite, especially coaches that gets the big likes because it's very nuanced, when in reality, I think, we can all kind of say the same thing. It takes discipline, it takes consistency, especially the experience in the world that you've been in bodybuilding, being a professional in that, as well as your business. It's, those simple messages, I think, just need to resonate more.
Yeah, I think so too. And the repetition is something that we all need. I don't know exactly what the number is. They say we need to hear something like 7 times before we actually get it. Mm-hmm. And even then, there's probably some that need to hear it 17 times,
Exactly.
And they're like, okay, yeah. Now I get it now. But I think anybody that's in this industry and in the fitness industry that has a moral compass and is in this long enough and has the right intentions, they're always going to come back. They're going to start to realize like, okay, I was majoring in the minors. I was focusing on all these like little things because that's what I was, drawn to initially when I first got into this. Maybe it was like keto or fasting or CrossFit, whatever, some specific thing. But I think after you've been in this for a while, you start to realize that it really does come back down to basics, and it always will. And it's without those foundational principles in place, nothing is ever going to stick, and it's probably not going to be very effective initially anyway. So, and it's all about making it last. And hopefully everybody comes to that conclusion after doing this for a while.
Yeah, it's, my mentor, Pavel Tsatsouline, just always brings that line out of the difference between the beginners and the elite, or the elite is just better at the basics. And I don't know if he coined that phrase or he probably paraphrased it from a bunch of other things, but it's true. I heard the other day, this actually just popped in my head. I'll just share this as the definition of wisdom. Everybody has their own definition, but it says it's relearning the same message over and over again until it finally sticks. And I was like, wow, I'm like, that is so exact. That's so personalized. I just took it and hit me, but I was like, that's just an absolute general message for all of us.
Yeah. I that can be applied in so many different ways. It makes me think of like books, like when people just plow through books and they just want to, I've read 50 books this year. Amazing. What do you remember about one of them? I think this one was talking about mindset or something. Oh, that one had something to do with nutrition. Like they don't know anything. because the whole goal was to get through it, but they're not really focusing on what it is that they actually learned from that. But if you just focus on 1 or 2, 3 books and then just get like grasp and incorporate everything you learned from that book into your life, and it might just be basic stuff, but like, don't try and like, nobody really like learns anything. They're just absorbing all this knowledge and there's tons of inputs, but they're not actually using them really even, it's not even really sinking in. So this repetition is what we all need.
It's an interesting concept. I've been that guy, you might've been as well. Yeah. It's just, I like, the book a week, like, oh, if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, it's the book a week. And then you go back, it's like, well, what do you remember? I remember the name. I remember the cover, so I actually went back. I started rereading books this year, ones that were impactful before and, in different times. And, I think it's a great lesson. So again, it's kind of going back to the basis. So, cool. We're going to dive into a bunch of this stuff here, Jeff. You've built a really strong following with your work, your business later lifestyle. I know is, super successful in transformation world, but I know everybody starts from humble beginnings on this. So I'd love to bring it back to how this got started. So did you get first into kind of the world of competing in bodybuilding yourself, or were you a coach first and got into that world? How did this whole kind of journey take place for you?
Well, there's kind of different phases of my journey. I've actually been very interested in working out and fitness from a very young age. And that's just due to my mom. I was an 80s kid, and my mom was into aerobics and did 5Ks and 10Ks on the weekends. And never really like pushed it on us, but it rubbed off on me and my brothers and sisters. But I've never really viewed it as a career. And so I never pursued it wholeheartedly. It was just something like as a passion I did on the side and something I was pursuing for myself. And so that wasn't something I initially got into, and I don't want to get into my whole story, but when I was a competitor before I coached, and I was a personal trainer long before that. Never as a full-time job though, just because, that's not how you make a living. At least that's what I thought. So I started out competing and did that, for a couple of years, 4 or 5 years before, not 4 or 5 years, it was probably just 2 or 3 years, but before I had a friend of mine that asked me like, hey, can you help me get on stage? And I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing, man. Like I'm just listening to my coach, and I read all this stuff, and I've been personal training all these years. And he's like, well, I don't want to work with anybody else. And he's like, well, what would you need to do it? I'm like, well, maybe I need some body fat calipers to test you. Cause I thought that was the key,
right?
Which it's really not, especially with competing. So he's like, yeah, I'll buy you body fat calipers and you'll just help me. Right. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. We'll do that. And he ended up winning, got on stage one. It was actually the very first year they introduced men's physique. So it was 2011, I believe. And he won the first show here.
Wow.
Locally, and very, very social, and just talked to a lot of people and sent a lot of people my way. And initially, again, I didn't really charge anybody because I was like, I'm an imposter. I don't really know what I'm doing. How could I charge you money? Everybody knows this stuff. This is simple stuff. Right.
Right.
And it got too busy, and we were like, okay, we probably should start charging for this.
Right.
And I still felt guilty though. I remember asking for credit cards was like the most awkward thing ever.
Yeah.
Just because you just feel like, so it's going to be $100. I don't know.
And they're like, really? Okay, sure.
I'm like, oh wow. I'm like, wait, $300? No, it was humble beginnings for sure. I definitely felt guilty charging money. But luckily I wasn't on my own. It was my wife and I that started this together, and we both share that passion. But we focused on coaching competitors at first because that's what we knew best.
Yeah,
which is kind of a backwards route. Most people start out lifestyle and then they start working with competitors.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I can understand it because when you're passionate about it personally yourself and you want to spread that message, it's filling two buckets, right? It's like you're filling your own bucket while you're also helping somebody else. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. But I know. I'm in the world of kettlebell coaching, which I've taught a lot of people about it, but still, it's a smaller world than the general population needs. From there. So I understand kind of going into the Gen Pop afterwards. With your guy who won, did you think that kind of he was going to win this, or was it just more of like, oh, let's just see how this goes and I'll help him out the best I can?
Well, I knew he was looking good. But this was, especially with it being a brand new division. I mean, before that for men, all there was bodybuilding, and that's what I did. And the all we had to go off of was like it was like 5 or 6 lines of like, here's the requirements for the division. They shouldn't be like super, super lean. They're not flexing on stage. It's kind of like a fitness model type of look. And so the logic in my head was like, well, they don't want him super shredded, but they're also not flexing. I'm going to get him super shredded, as shredded as a bodybuilder will be, but we just won't flex. And he walked away with it.
Wow.
So yeah, I wasn't even close. So that, I mean, I just kind of, I was like, well, to just stand there and look your best, you really do have to be quite lean. And so that's what we pushed for. But yeah, I mean, you never know, but it turned out really well for him.
Yeah. And then, so people just started kind of coming to you afterwards, just referrals and stuff like that. What were you doing at that time? What was your job?
So I worked, I worked for a network marketing company, a multi-level marketing company. That's a big thing here in Utah. It's like the home of all of them. But I was doing product development. So I would develop dietary supplements. So I was in the industry, working on doing research and development on different supplement lines, and launched a bunch of different products, some of which generated millions and millions of dollars, of which I saw none. But it was still fun to be a part of that. But yeah, that's what I was doing as my day job.
Yeah. Okay. So how long was it of working with these people before you like started transitioning and realizing, oh, I think I could make actually a career of this?
I probably could have done it sooner than I did. It was just fear, that held me back, because it was probably 3 or 4 years. We built up our client base. People come and go, but I think at the time I actually got laid off, and that was kind of my push off the cliff that I needed. Cause I don't know that I would have done it, cause, you had the security of, the benefits and the steady paycheck and, all those things. And, when I got laid off, I'm like, okay, well, and at that point we already had like 80 plus clients. So we were super busy. But I was still holding down a full-time job. The company just wasn't doing well, and ended up going bankrupt like 4 or 5 months later. But yeah, it pushed me over the edge, and I was like, well, this is my opportunity. I could go look for another job, but I have this good client base. And actually that month that I got laid off, it was 2014. We had our biggest month ever, and it's almost been a linear path ever since, linear growth since then.
Wow. Yeah. It's interesting because like 80 clients at that time, and still kind of thinking, is this something that I can do full time? I know there's a lot of young coaches that are probably like going crazy, but everybody's mindset is different on that time. From that, that's really interesting.
We weren't charging a ton of money, so it probably sounds better than it is. But that was part of that limiting belief that dominated me, my mindset for a long time. But I think at that point, and as that first year doing it on my own, panned out, it gave me some confidence. I'm like, okay, maybe this is something that we can actually do for a living and not end up on the streets. Yeah.
So I want to ask you more about coaching, but I want to bring it back to your personal work, with competing in there. Did you, like you said, you were athletic and you were in training early on from your mom's, experience and stuff like that too. Was competing always something that you thought you might want to do, or is it something that you got into from friends or a coach? Kind of, how'd you get into that world?
No, back when there was print magazines, I don't know how old your audience is, but
I remember.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it's something that fascinated me from a young age. I was probably 14, 15, seeing them, and I never bought one of those magazines, but I think I started getting them later in high school, seeing Flex magazine, Muscle and Fitness, and these big guys. I'm like, holy crap, these guys are amazing. They always put like, this is what they eat. And I'm looking at their menu, and I'm like, how are they doing that? There's just so much food. And so it was something that interested me very early on, but I never thought I was capable of doing that. I was never a big guy. So I would say I was mildly athletic in high school. I wasn't like this jock. I wasn't, some standout athlete by any means. I was fast. I could run fast. So I was a state champion in track. But that was about it. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't until the age of 30 that I actually got on stage. I mean, I waited that long. And just because I was about 175 pounds, 5'9", pretty average looking. I mean, I was fit, but if you put me in normal clothes, other than maybe not having a gut, no one would think like, oh man, that guy works out. No one would.
Gotcha. So what happened at that time? Was there a mindset shift that you had at that time, or was it just something that you were like, maybe I could do this. I need a new challenge. Kind of what was the thought process around age 30?
Went through a divorce.
Okay.
And it was we were only married for 2 years, got divorced, which was, it was a tough thing to go through, but that was kind of like the catalyst for me. And that, I remember at that point, I moved into my own place and I'd gotten down to like 165 pounds. Like I had lost weight just going through that process. And by the end of the year, I was about 195 pounds. Not fat. I was like, I'm just going to start. Yeah. And what I was doing was so weird because, I remember I would eat steak and eggs for breakfast and I would get the cheapest steak. I would get like Eye of Round. Like it was like tough steak. And I probably overcooked it, The
workout in itself, just getting that.
Yeah. Working my jaw muscles there.
Yep.
But yeah, I gained a whole bunch of weight, but it really wasn't the divorce, but it's what the divorce led to. I mean, I ended up meeting my wife, shortly after I separated from my first marriage, which was a disaster. And I was super resistant. I mean, she pursued it and, she had been divorced for 2 years. So we both been married before, and she was actually going through her first competition. She was preparing for it. Okay. And I remember towards the latter stages of it, I was like, why are you doing this? You should stop. Cause she seemed miserable. It was taking up so much time. She just seemed exhausted. I was like, this sounds awful. Why are you doing this? But she didn't stop. She kept going, got on stage, and, she's like, you should do this too. And after I saw her actually go through with it, I was like, yeah, maybe I can do this. I don't know. Yeah. And so I ended up hiring her coach that she was working with at the time. And, not a fantastic coach by any means, but it worked out and kind of showed me some things that I, had looked at in a different light prior to that. And got on stage at about 175 pounds, about 8 months later. So I had been able to put on, a bunch of weight, because 175 pounds is where my weight used to be, but it was 175 pounds, very, very lean on stage. So, that was my first experience. And that was, 2008.
Yeah. What was that first process like going in? I know I've, spoke with a lot of friends, a lot of people that have, connected with who are in the competing world in there. What was that? Was it kind of the experience of going through that first one? Was it what you thought it would be, or was it drastically like different or more challenging when you got really into all the kind of the nuts and bolts of it?
I don't think anybody could ever prepare for what you go through. Even being an outside observer, seeing what, my girlfriend at the time was going through, you just don't grasp it. You have no clue until you actually go through it. And especially, it seems like the first one is the hardest, but I think it's more just because from a mentality standpoint, you don't know what to expect. And it's probably the hardest thing you could ever do.
Yeah. What's the toughest part of it? Was it, everybody thinks of the physical side of it, which I get, but there's such the mental side of it as well. Is one you feel more challenging, or was it just the combination of everything that you go through to finally get on stage?
Well, I think obviously with this, there's involves a ton of physical work, but ultimately it really does come down to your mental fortitude. And I remember like what I used to do. I used to have to do cardio twice a day for about an hour, and I had to maintain a certain heart rate. So I remember in the mornings, I would go and get my first cardio session done, and I would have to climb the stairs because it was on the second floor. That's where the machine was. I was on the step mill. I remember climbing the stairs, I remember it was like one specific day, and I have no idea what day that was. It would have been nice to have like written it down, but I remember climbing the stairs that day and getting to the top of the stairs and just being like, I barely made it up those stairs.
Yeah.
Like I am exhausted. Now I have to go get on that death machine, maintain a heart rate of 157 beats per minute for an hour. How am I going to do that? And at that point, my cardiovascular strength was pretty good. So in order to maintain that type of heart rate, I was essentially running up that thing for an hour.
Wow.
And so, yes, physically, that a lot of exertion, a lot of work, right? But it was all up here that powered me through it, because I could have easily given up and said, there's no way. So like, yeah, today I'm just not feeling it today, and go home. But it ultimately is the mental fortitude that this whole process like built.
Yeah.
And it really did change my life. Cause I am capable. I could do it every single time, but I never felt like it. I didn't feel like it was possible, but I forced myself to do it, and I did it every time.
Yeah.
So that was one of the coolest lessons I got from it.
It's such an interesting thing with competing. Cause like I said, I've talked with bodybuilders, I've talked with Olympic lifters, just like the process of having that competition. I remember when I talked to my friend Danny Casey, who owns New York Weightlifting Academy with Olympic lifting, and he said, regardless of who comes into his gym, he encourages them to compete in something, like just go in and compete. And it's more so just because of that mental spot. It's like you can't teach somebody, I guess, that experience of going through it and actually like stepping on stage or on the platform and actually then looking back in retrospective, realizing all the effort and energy in those days that you put in that time, that you went up the stairs. I remember a buddy of mine who was competing for a show was talking about just like trying to grab the remote control for the TV when he was like a couple weeks out was like such a chore to do. And it's like, not everybody needs to, I guess, go through that type of experience in order to understand, but it's like, I think that's a lesson that we can all learn of. I think you're a lot more capable than you probably realize you are, but the only way to do that is to go through something so difficult, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different examples like that. I mean, just standing up from a seated position, you get lightheaded, and I mean, sometimes driving was difficult. Just because you're so exhausted, you're eating so little and you're outputting so much. And it's just, I mean, the negative energy balance there is just insane. But that's what it takes to get your body to a place where it's competitive on stage. But yeah, ultimately going through that process, and this is how I try to frame it for anybody that's considering it, is that it really does empower you. It shows you that you are capable of doing incredibly hard things. And if you have the right mindset, if you have to view it as an opportunity, right? Because so many people, like, they get into it, they halfway through it, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait until I can eat normal, or I can't wait till this is over. And I think that's the wrong mindset for that entire process, because you're not going to appreciate it.
Yeah.
And you're more than likely going to have a negative experience. It's not going to be a positive thing for you.
Yeah. Do you think that that's kind of it's that comparison of like results driven versus process driven? It's like, as you see the people who really struggle with it, is it like, oh, I look on stage at the people and they look amazing and I want to do that. Like, I want to have that success, but not actually like realizing the process that you take. Like, that's almost just like the cherry on top of the sundae, right? It's like the process of what you become building up to that. That's probably the reward. And again, it's like, it's probably really hard to put into somebody's mind until they just go through it themselves, right?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I don't think you could possibly understand it until you actually go through it. Just like for me, being an outside observer, a partner to my wife as she was going through her process, I still didn't grasp it until I went through it myself. But it's a unique sport in that even when you compare it to like powerlifting or a marathon or something like that, where the hardest day of that entire process is the day of the competition, of the meet, of the race. Whereas with bodybuilding, all the work is done pretty much up until that point. And then just on that day, you're just showing off what you worked for. So it's a little different from some of the other sports out there, but it is. And what draws most people in is the outcome. Right. So they see the pictures online, like, oh my gosh, my friend or this girl or this guy, they look amazing. They have a 6-pack, or they have this amazing bikini and they just look awesome. I want to do that. or I want to look like that. But going through the process, they get awakened to, oh my gosh, this is really, really, really hard. And I would say at least half the people drop out because they just don't have that drive.
Yeah. My good friend I know who's in kind of both worlds, like the kettlebell world and in the bodybuilding world, we were having a conversation one time, and he said he's had to talk more people out of going into a show than actually like motivating people to go into a show. It's like more, he's like, now more anybody that comes up and says, I want to perform in a show or go in, he's more like looking for all the reasons possibly to say like, no, you're not ready for this.
Then like, he's doing it right.
Yeah,
he really is. I agree with that because I have to do that as well. Because so many people just, in fact, our process, honestly, for most people is that we want to make sure that they have the lifestyle down first. Like if they're going from like 0 to 1,000 miles an hour, it's going to end disastrously. So many people have that, they see these pictures and like, this girl looks amazing. I should do a competition, even though I've never worked out or I haven't worked out in 10 years. I eat whatever I want. I'm 100 pounds overweight, but yeah, I want to get that because I like to be ambitious.
Yeah.
And then they walk into this thing and get killed. And then, or if they, for some reason, they are able to just plow through it. They do that. They lose 100 pounds, they get on stage and they look amazing. The aftermath of that is going to be more disastrous than they could ever imagine.
Right.
Because they don't have the habits, they don't have the lifestyle, they don't have the mentality. None of that is in place. And they just go back to what they consider to be normal. And their normal is so far away from the lifestyle of the competitor that they end up having a huge reaction in a very negative way.
Yeah. Do you have a process or a way that you usually talk to people kind of in that mindset? I always think this is interesting because, we talk as coaches all the time about it's about the process and stuff like that. But then when we're talking to, people who want that result, it's like, yes, that's good to want that result, but you still have to love the process, from it. So do you have a specific kind of approach or kind of questions you usually ask people when they first get into really know whether they're in the right mindset to go forward with this?
Yeah, we do. And there are a number of different things that we ask, but I think one of the biggest ones is why? Why do you want to do this? What's in it for you, or what's the drive behind doing something like this? Because most of the time it is pretty shallow. Like it's not to say not meaning like shallow as in vain, but like it's not really a deep-seated meaning. It's not really anything that's that meaningful to them. And so it's really easy for them to give up because it's really not that. Okay, it would have been nice to have looked like that, but potato chips and I'm busy and dating this girl, whatever. There's all sorts of excuses that come up. But if it's really meaningful for somebody, then they'll be able to power through those hard days because they're going to be very, very hard days. And if your why isn't strong enough, you'll collapse.
Yeah. It's interesting. The whole concept of goal setting is interesting to me because, I was in a commercial gym for a while and we had the park cues and stuff like that. And it is like, why? But I think what happened, I remember as a young coach, and I've seen a lot of, young coaches do this as well, is like they ask why, and the person gives them a quick answer and then they just move right on to the next thing. And it seems like, no,
checking a box.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's almost like, I think nobody ever really taught us in school how to goal set. Like actually, like what is the process of goal setting? And I think that's something in the industry and working as coaches. Like if we worked on that a little bit more and actually took some more time of like, actually sit and like go deep into that why. Who is it? I think the founder of Toyota who has like the 5 why formula. He's like, if you ask why 5 times, now you're at least getting a deeper layer into what's going on. But I think, and I don't know, maybe it's a lot of people, that's a difficult conversation to have with a lot of people.
It is. And they have to be willing, So it's interesting. You say there's the 5, there's a site that we send people to sometimes, or we'll just walk through it with them. Because sometimes we will get these very simple answers back. Why? Like, I want to feel better. Or, what if it's a lifestyle questionnaire, right? Because that's typically who we work with. It's like, I want to feel comfortable in my own skin, or I want to have energy, or I want to lose 50 pounds. Like those aren't, none of those things are wise. None of them are. Although that's what they will say. Like nobody comes to you or to me or to anybody else or starts a fitness journey because they want to lose weight. Right. That's not what's driving them. What's driving them is what that will do for them. When I lose weight, I will have more confidence, and more confidence might lead to better relationships, and it might lead to better career path. It might lead to, all these other things. They don't often see that. All they see is like what's right in front of them is like, oh, I need to get over this hurdle. This hurdle is 50 pounds. This is what's holding me back. But they don't often see what kind of doors it will open for them.
Yeah.
So the site that we send them to is actually 7levelsdeep.com. I haven't heard of the 5, but the 7 I have, and it's a very simple website, but all it does is it asks you like, what do you want to do? You put it in. Why is that important to you?
Yeah.
Boom. And I think it just asks, why is that important to you? Like 7 times basically.
Yeah.
And until everybody gets to, daddy issues, but
right.
It's as long as you're like willing to, kind of do the own investigative work on yourself and really figure out what is actually driving you. And sometimes you do need someone to help guide you through that.
Yeah.
Then you really will discover like what is behind a lot of the things that you do in life, not just with your fitness, but so it's important. And no one teaches that.
Well, and I think too, it's like when you actually do that for the first time, it could not be a very enjoyable experience. Like it might be bringing up some nasty stuff that you've been hiding before. Like it's very easy to talk about the surface level stuff. And, I see this so much in business and entrepreneurship as well. Like you see the picture of the super successful, duo that's just hit their 7 figures and like so on and so forth. And you're like, I want that, but not realizing like those people probably either one, it might be just a fake facade that they're throwing out on social media, which you got to be aware of nowadays. But 2, it's like the process that's built up. Like if you don't have a strong why behind that's going to feed you through those difficult days, like there's just no chance for it. It's like, it's too difficult to get to those things.
Yeah. Yeah, it really isn't. And again, it applies to everything in life. It really does. And it's interesting to see our own evolution. You said nobody really teaches you like how to goal set or anything like that. Nobody really teaches you how to have the right mindset. Nobody teaches you those things. When you start to look at, because one thing that we've really evolved towards, and it's almost just been like this gravitational pull, and we could have resisted, but it was slapping us upside the face left and right, that it really is all what's going on between years. That is what leads to success in business, success in relationships, success with your fitness. So health, wealth, and relationships, like the 3 foundational drivers behind everything in life. And without the right mindset, without the right skills, you're not going to be successful in any of those things. Some people get lucky here and there, but when you find, like when you start reading about all these successful people and what was the turning point for them? What led to them all of a sudden going from broke to making millions almost effortlessly, or from fat to super fit, to put it bluntly. And it almost always comes back to mindset. Mm-hmm. Not the things that you do, that does drives kind of the things that you do, but without that foundational, that bedrock mindset in place, it's just not going to happen. And if it does happen, it's not going to stick. It'll be very transient.
Yeah. It's interesting mindset because it's such a broad term, right? It's like something that everybody's, you got to get your mind right. And I've talked with some of the greatest coaches about mindset, and it's a great topic to dive into. But also I've always been pondering of like tying and connecting a mindset practice with a physical component, I think could be really one of the most vital things. I think that's why you see a lot of people who are, successful. And when I say successful, like in their own terms, a lot of them they have an exercise practice, like they built that around their mindset as well. And I'm always curious, especially in the bodybuilding world, like when you got into competing, did you know about mindset work, or was it just kind of, that just built kind of as the process went along?
Yeah. Well, that's the bodybuilding world. Nobody talks about that stuff in the bodybuilding world at all. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you do hear it quite a bit in the fitness space. A lot of people talk about mindset. They're like, oh yeah, mindset I'm a mindset coach. I teach all about this stuff, but they don't. They just say like, that's important. You need to work on the mindset first. They'll say a few things about it, and then they move on to like, okay, you need to do 6 reps, whatever. Then they start worrying about like the surface level tactics, like the nutrition and the exercise. And that's how I look at them, is their surface level. Mm-hmm. But again, if you don't have the bedrock, if you don't have the foundation below it, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
That's why people go from diet to diet to diet to diet, when all of those, every single one of them probably could have worked. Because even the stupidest diets, they wouldn't exist if they didn't result in some sort of progression towards a better body composition.
Right.
But the mindset's wrong, or it's not there. It's just completely misplaced. And so there needs to be deeper work done for so many people to try and get to the bottom of like, what is it that's holding you back?
Yeah.
What is it that you don't believe in yourself? What is it that caused you to create these beliefs about yourself like so early on in life? Because a lot of times it is earlier on in life, and there's trauma there sometimes for some people. And so I think that it's funny that you mentioned that, because that was the thing that was slapping us across the face. Like, this is what we need to pay a lot more attention to.
Yeah.
And so we all got, we've been working for the past couple of years with mindset tools. And then just this last year, we're coming up on a year now where we've been working with the former guy that ran Tony Robbins' coaching program. And he's been working with us one-on-one, mentoring us. And we're coming up with our own certification for a training method that is based in mindset, but obviously involves all the best of nutrition and fitness anyway. Because the thing about nutrition and fitness is you can, no matter who you are, I don't care how brilliant you are, how expert level you may be with nutrition or fitness, you can find all that stuff for free online.
Yeah.
Anything that I teach, nutrition, exercise, find it on free, find it for free by Google. It'll give it to you. Mm-hmm. Deciphering that is difficult sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. But really, without the mindset, none of those things will matter.
Yeah.
And that's been proven time and time again.
Yeah. I love that message you had. It reminds me of what you first talked about with the first guy that you worked with who won the competition on stage, and naturally we think that, we need more knowledge in order to charge for our sessions or to be like known as a pro. Yeah. When if you think about that guy just trusted you. Like he just trusted you that you were the one to do. And I think that's trust is an emotion like anything. Like if you trust some, and my coach, BG always says that. He's like, he tells us all the time as entrepreneurs, is like, no one gives a shit about like what your program is. It's like, there's 1.5 million programs out there. Like they need to know and trust you. It's like, so tell your story, like be empathetic, actually be a real person. And that's kind of part of mindset. And I think that kind of just going on that topic of mindset, I think it can get misinterpreted with a lot of people of thinking that you need to do all of this mindset work first before you do anything else, which I'm like, no, you don't. Like you can do other things, and like you can do an exercise program, you can follow it. And that's why I think like getting into like beginning programs, if you're a beginner, just doing it, just having the discipline, like don't think so much about the mindset piece. Am I doing this right? So on and so forth. It's like, just go in and do it. Build the discipline up first. Like they're all going to connect like at the time that you need it.
They can help each other. They
absolutely.
There's definitely some synergies there. I think if you are doing something physical can help change your mental state. I mean, it just doing them both will they'll feed upon each other, or feed off each other. They'll be able to you'll be able to develop a stronger mental fortitude. I mean, that's one thing that I got organically, whether I purposefully tried to do that or not through my first competition process, but they definitely go hand in hand. And don't wait until you have the mindset. You're just wasting time at that point. But I think so many people and you see this a lot in the fitness space. You see so many different like life coaches that are just crushing it worldwide. A lot of them started in fitness.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, like to see like that progression in. And again, that seems to be like this gravitational pull that's where we're supposed to be going, because if we really do want to have an impact and we want to see change that lasts. So I run into my clients 20, 30 years down the road. They're still fit. Their kids are fit. Everyone around them is fit. That's impact. And that's what I want. And you're not going to get that unless you start up here. Yeah. And so many people, they don't even know what to do. I mean, most of the coaches, they don't have that themselves. So how can they teach that?
Absolutely.
So they're just focusing on like, well, what's the latest diet trend? What can I do? Let's see if we can get them to eat a Snickers bar and still lose fat, something.
Yeah,
gimmicky.
exactly. It's all the gimmicky stuff. And it's like the transformation-y type programs and stuff. And, it's like, I think the better term for it is evolution. It's like knowing that down the line, like, yeah, your mind and your thoughts of stuff is going to continually evolve. It's like where you start with business the first day versus where you start, 2 years down the road after doing a lot of reps in every single day. It's like, I'm sure like working with your coach, your mindset coach right now, if you talk to him on the first day you ever started this, it would probably be a much different conversation. You would get a lot different, stuff from him than what, and sometimes you need to, like I said, you just get those reps in first, you just build that discipline up.
That's what it takes is reps, with everything. We need repetition. That's kind of how we started this conversation. We talked about repetition, but that's really what it comes back to. And if we really want to grasp and master something, then we just need to put in the reps. Just like with our bodies, it's the same goes back to our minds with relationships, with our career. We do need to actually do the work. But your mindset is key to actually probably following through with with that work as well.
How much is it when you work with people, do they think that like their workout or their training program needs to bring out a certain emotion for them? Like they're looking for, like, they're chasing like the burn or that deep feeling. I bring it up because I'll share a quick personal story, Jeff, because as we're recording this right now, I just finished a pretty long goal of completing the SFL program, of finishing my last requirement, which I've trained for about 6 months for. And kind of I finally got the requirements and it's like, oh, you completed it. Everything's done. Congratulations. And I was looking back, it's like every day of working towards this, there was like zero emotion towards training. Like if I barely felt like I was making any progress, it was like so like small and incremental, over that time. And in my head, even I was thinking like, am I even making progress on here? Like, do I need to make a different shift? And then I realized I'm looking for a specific feeling when I'm training, not just going in and just getting the reps done. When in reality, like I was progressing the way that I was supposed to progress. But I think a lot of times that's why big boot camp style things are still popular and stuff, because they're promoting and they're building a emotion out of it, when it's kind of almost hard to say like, no, like it shouldn't be an emotion you're chasing, for this. Do you know where I'm getting at?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could go emotion or even physical feeling, you know, it's, I mean, I don't know if I'm exactly following you on the physical feeling versus emotion. I mean, the emotional, I mean, sometimes there's, I mean, every day you can have bad days. You can have days where the workout felt like garbage, but if you do it, and those are the days that matter most, because it's being able to do the work when you don't feel like it, being able to do the work when you don't have the most energy in the world, or you got all sorts of distractions around you, or maybe you drank the night before, I don't know. You have to be able to do it on the hard days, and see it through. But, you're not always going to have the feeling that if that's what you're going for every single time, it's just not going to happen most of the time.
Yeah. I think that's where like the movie montages and stuff like that, like they look so much fun and make training look so inspirational. It's like, you're supposed to feel like that every day. It's like, that's not really the case, right?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. So do you still compete yourself at all? Or you just focus on coaching right now? Or?
No, I got my pro card in 2018 and, kind of caught me off guard. And so I'd always looked at that as my finish line. And, so I remember they asked me, I did this interview about 2 minutes after I had gotten off stage. Like, so what's next? And I'm like, donuts. That's what's next. I have no plans of getting back on stage. I mean, some people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to go compete again in a pro show like next weekend, or I'm going to take some time and then next year I'm going to come back. That wasn't on my mind. I hadn't looked past the date that I was focused on, and nothing else. I wasn't looking past it at all. And that was it for me. I'm retired. So that was 4 years ago. And, there's been twice where I thought about coming back. Once where, I hired a coach, and, cause I've always had a coach throughout my entire competitive career. One of the things that actually confirmed it for me was a year after I got my pro card, my coach died. He passed away very young. He was only 34. Worked with, Matt Porter. We were very close friends, and, it was a pretty traumatic thing. And, I'd been through multiple coaches before. And when he passed away, I was like, well, I'm never competing again. I'm done. and I haven't. So, yeah, I just focus on my business, focus on my family, and it's been difficult because it dominated my life for so long, and it was such a key part of my life that having that carrot removed from from me chasing it for so long was not good. I really had to do some work to I guess figure out what I'm doing with my life, even though I had my business that I was working on, my coaching business for a long time, but having my own personal endeavor of pursuing this thing. Yeah. When I achieved it, it was great. And then it was awful at the same time. Right. So still kind of going through that mentality. I think I need to, I try to occupy my time with other things, and I still work out. I still live the lifestyle, but I just don't have those competitions. Coming up.
It's interesting, right? I mean, it's kind of an identity shift that happens, that's evolution of time that goes through. So what I want to ask you, Jeff, too, if I'm kind of bringing you back again with competing, is your girlfriend at the time, now wife, was also a competitor and kind of going through the same process while you were going through. How important was it for you that you had her did you use her as kind of like an emotional support, person in that time? Like, how big was that for you, of having her as kind of going through the same experience to be able to lean on?
Well, when I did the interview, when I got off stage after winning my pro card, I had to pull my wife in because, this wasn't just my pro card. It was a joint pro card, because I wouldn't have been able to do it without her. I mean, she's really the reason I ended up getting on stage for the first time anyway. If it wasn't for her, then it never would have happened. At least maybe eventually would have happened, but I wouldn't be living the life that I am today if it wasn't for her. So, having that support system was key to making it work.
Yeah. I think it's a great message, because there's so much that goes out now about like, you need to focus on yourself. Like, don't let any tunnel vision and stuff like that. And it's like, it's important. Yeah. Like, motivate yourself. I think you need to do it internally, but that can also kind of shield you in the way of like, you don't need anybody else in your corner. Like, when in reality, like, to do these things that we have in life, like community, support systems, I think are so important. So, I think for anybody who's going on that journey, even as coaches, like asking clients, like, who's around you, like talking about the people that are around you, what is that energy like and stuff, that could play such a bigger, role. I mean, it's kind of like with kids, like all of a sudden your parents were your biggest influences. Then all of a sudden it shifts over and your friends are. It's the same thing in adulthood. Like, the people that you surround yourself with and that energy they're bringing out, I think is so important, and we don't talk about it as much.
Well, you're going to absorb it whether you want to or not. Right. So you need to make sure that the people that you are surrounding yourself with are people that are going to be lifting you up and not holding you back. I think for so many people, there are a lot of negative influences. Sometimes it comes from family. Sometimes it comes from close friends, lifelong friends that have, such limiting beliefs, such victim mentality and negative all the time. And so every time you go around them, are you a better person? No, you're probably worse. So it's very difficult sometimes, because sometimes they are very long relationships that you've had. But if it doesn't serve you, if it's holding you back, if it's lowering your quality of life, you need to be able to make that break. Maybe not entirely, but just maybe don't spend as much time around them, because whether you like it or not, you're going to absorb their tendencies, their mindset, and it's going to impact you negatively.
Yeah. It's such I remember there was a client story I had from a long time ago where it was the most interesting call, because this person I worked with, they had a best friend that was just in a negative space in their own mind and just kind of bringing them down. And they would talk about a lot during the sessions, and we would kind of say, kind of like just the cliche stuff of like, well, don't let it phase you and all this stuff. Like, I didn't really know what the heck to say until eventually I got a call from this friend saying, hey, I've been watching, my friend go through this process, and I've really seen her change over time. It's like, I'm just curious what you're doing. And it's like, we started chatting, and they eventually actually started, working and training, with us at the place I was at itself. So I think too, it's interesting is like, people are watching. It's like, they might not understand what you're doing, but if you keep following that path and you do it, like, sometimes you need to cut those people out for a bit, but Also, like, you're going to impact other people as well, from it. I think that's one of the coolest things about this world that we're in, is when people make that change for themselves, but then all of a sudden they start impacting their whole community and their influences around them.
Absolutely. Actually, a great example of that I see all the time is, in an environment where you can't control who the people are around you, like a work environment.
Yeah.
You can't control your coworkers, right? But you spend a ton of time with them, and you'll get pushback if you're ever trying to like change your body, change your habits, eat in a certain way, exercise more. You're going to get pushback and resistance and even mockery from people around you. And especially in a work environment where they're not really people that care about you. They may say that, you're work friends, but you're not really like close friends. And I've seen people where it's funny because I see this happen. And then I talk to my clients, and I'm like, they're going to make fun of you for a little while, and they'll give you a hard time, and they'll try to tempt you and tell you that it's okay. It's just one bite. Just do this one thing, until they start to see you change. And then one by one, individually, they'll come to you and be like, so what are you doing?
Yeah.
And, and I think initially there's so much that's been talked about, the psychology behind people trying to tempt others. I think it's just that it's almost like you're holding a mirror up in front of their faces and showing them their bad behavior. Mm-hmm. Like this is what you're doing. I'm choosing not to do that because I don't think that that's good. And so that makes them feel guilty about what they're doing, because like, wait, you're not doing this because you're trying to be better, and I'm doing this, so you're saying I'm bad, or what I'm doing is not good. And so it kind of makes them feel guilty, and guilt loves pleasure, right? Or guilt loves company. Sorry.
Yeah.
And they just want people to join in so that they feel better about themselves.
Yeah.
Like I'm eating cake on a Tuesday because it's Joan's birthday, and we got to do it because it's her birthday, and there's 3 other birthdays this week, and we have to get cake those days too. I don't know. Just yeah.
It's so interesting too, because it doesn't take that many times to overcome that till it really shifts. It's kind of like the workouts you said, kind of competing. It's like, you feel like shit, but then you get it done. You're like, oh, wow, I got that done. Like that builds a reference point in your mind. And it's like, and it's, it's a different, analogy and stuff, but I get it. Like cake in the workroom. It's like the same thing. It's like, you just stay on your plan, or it's like, that's not what you want to do. And you just do that one time. Like that's building you stronger. Like you're going to have that reference point the next time too. And it's amazing how quickly you can build that momentum up. So it's not even like a phase anymore. Yeah. So it's such a cool thing. So
yeah, I went through my own experience with that, because I worked in the corporate world. When I first started doing this, I was in a big, huge, building with a bunch of coworkers, and on my floor, there would be donuts literally right next to my desk, because that's where there was space. I was in this cubicle, and there was a table, and they would load them up with donuts every Friday. And, initially people would come by, and nobody was paying attention whether I was participating or not. But once they figured out like, oh man, this guy, he eats a certain way, and oh, he's competing. And so I'd get all sorts of crap for a while. Like, I'll eat yours for you, or, I'll eat double because Jeff's not eating one, all sorts of different shit as they walk by, until they stopped.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, Jeff doesn't eat that. Mm-hmm. And they just kind of accepted it. And they admired me. And the other funny thing too is that I would, it was a big company. I was kind of this mid-level guy. I wasn't a high level. I wasn't a peon, but kind of a mid-level guy. And I would be in these big meetings sometimes where the C-level staff was there, CEO, CMO, CFO. And I would have my meals with me, which is like one of the biggest pushbacks from people. Would be like, oh, I can't eat my food in front of other people. I'm like, well, I did. I didn't care. And I'm like, I have to eat this food, because there were times where I would skip them, and I'm like, well, if I skip meal, I can't skip a meal. And I was trying to gain, because I was a small guy, right? So if I missed a meal, I would lose 2 or 3 pounds. It would take me a week to get back. So I'm not going to miss a meal. So if this means I'm eating my chicken and rice in front of 30 people, so be it.
Yeah.
And I got some looks at first, and then it just became accepted, and then it became respected, and everybody just expected that from me. And I remember all the C-level staff would come and talk to me after, one by one. Man, you have incredible discipline. I can't believe it. And ever since I left that company, every single member of that C-level, there was 5 of them, has approached me about business opportunities.
Yeah.
Because they respected my work ethic.
Yeah. That's awesome, Jeff. That line there, accepted to respected. That's just a mic drop moment right there. That's freaking awesome. So
I don't think I've ever said that, but it just kind of came out.
No, it's beautiful. I love it. So, Jeff, I really appreciate you taking the time today. This has been awesome connecting with you. And I love the work that you're doing. I love following your work. So, keep doing you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. If people want to follow you, check out more of your work, your content, what's the best place that they can go to?
Instagram's my main social platform. And it's just Jeff Later, at Jeff Later, JEFFLATER.
Perfect. Awesome, brother. Thank you so much. Guys, thank you so much. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some great value here. And if you like this episode, please drop a comment and leave us a 5-star rating and review. It does more to build the show than you can imagine. And do not forget to check out and join the Strength Connection Facebook group. In this group, I share the biggest takeaways and lessons from these amazing conversations, as well as training and strength tips for pursuing mastery and fulfillment in life. This group is filled with individuals looking to take full control over their strength, and it's the perfect space to explore new ideas and to share your journey. And you'll also get exclusive access to these Strength Connection Mastery seminars. It's a deep dive into the physical, mental, and spiritual training that you can begin using immediately. So do not wait, go now. Seriously, go. All right, much love to you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.